Good morning. It's Monday, June 2nd. My name is Chris, and this is Tech Talk Today, and joining me is the yin to my yang, because it's a lot later in the day where he's at, Mr. Alan Pope. Mr. Popey. Hey, Popey.
Hey, Chris. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good. Welcome to the inaugural episode of Tech Talk Today, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
So I'm pretty good with accents, and I know there might be some people listening who are not familiar. Maybe they don't listen to Linux Unplugged, so they haven't heard you. So I've done a lot of broadcasting for a lot of years. I bet I could place your accent pretty good.
Really?
And I know it's later in the day where you're at, so it's a bit of an advantage. So I'm gonna say, based on your accent, Orlando, Florida. How close am I?
Miles away. No.
All right, where are you located at?
I'm about 40 miles outside London in England. That's UK, Great Britain, or whatever you want to call it.
Wow. Okay. All right. So I was a little off, is what you're saying. Just a little bit.
Yeah, just a touch.
It's good to get a perspective from across the pond on the inaugural episode of Tech Talk Today. And are you guys all in a tizzy over there about WWDC, which is going to literally launch as we are wrapping up today's episode? Do you guys care about it over there?
I personally do.
Seems like the whole internet cares quite a bit about it.
I like the reveal. I like seeing what new things the competition are doing.
Yeah.
But I see a lot of people who dislike it and think it's just fanboyism and sheeple and all that kind of stuff. But I don't care.
A chat room's asking, what is WWDC? This is Apple's yearly Worldwide Developers Conference, and I actually find it to be more relevant now that they're actually more of a industry contender. It seems it's back when they were just making Macs and it was nobody but Mac fans that cared. It seemed more like fanboyism, and I can see that stigma persists. But now they're like the number 2 smartphone platform, and they the number 1 tablet platform. So they're a little more relevant now.
Developers buy their laptops.
That's very true, and they will probably have some laptops they'll release today. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, what we're going to do today is just so you guys have the news, so that way you can tune into Tech Talk Today and get the news that we find interesting. Popey helped me pick some headlines, so I will run through the headlines real quick, and then we're going to pull one out to talk about. So our first story today is Google plans to spend over $1 billion to deploy low-altitude satellites for internet access in remote areas. This is pretty crazy. $1 billion on a fleet of satellites to extend internet across the unwired regions of the globe. People familiar with the project said, hoping they would be able to somehow overcome previous financial problems that thwarted previous efforts. So this isn't even the first time they've considered doing this. The details remain in flux. The people said, again, familiar with the matter, that the project will start with 180 small, high-capacity satellites orbiting the Earth at lower altitudes than traditional satellites could achieve. So Google satellite internet. If you maybe weren't going to get fiber, you might get Google internet from a satellite. Our second headline today that we wanted to cover, Facebook has announced that they are planning to execute trials of Btrfs. The Linux kernel block maintainer for Btrfs and lead developer now works at Facebook, Chris Mason. He revealed the news at the Linux Foundation Collaboration Summit in Napa Valley on Thursday. This is all according to Phoronix. Mason said that Facebook will trial Btrfs in its web tier servers, expanding their easiest tier to recover if necessary, though we imagine Facebook might ask the NSA for its backup copy if there was a disaster. Oh, NSA joke. Next headline that caught our interest today, we're moving through these pretty quick. A popular game that was on Ouya, well, that's not the right title card for it, Towerfall, which I know Popey's kind of excited about, right, Popey?
Oh, yeah.
It's coming now to Linux. It'll be available on Steam. It's actually on sale today, you guys, for $9.99. That's 33% lower than the normal $15 price. So you better decide sooner or later, because the sale wraps up. Popey, why are you excited about this game?
It's the one game that is worth playing on the Ouya. It's a really cool multiplayer game. I play it with my kids, and my kids kick my butt at the game, and it's just brilliant fun. It's really good, multiple people in the same room, each with a controller playing on the same screen. I'm not sure how well that'll translate across to the Linux desktop. It might be good on a Steam box, or if you've got a Linux gaming computer connected to a TV with multiple controllers. I think it's less fun for the single player.
Yeah, I can see that.
But multiplayer is just fabulous. It's a great game.
I'll have to check it out, and you guys can go get it today on sale. That's it's called Tower Recension or Ascension. Is that what it is? A Tower Ascension, and it's 33% off. So that's a pretty good deal.
Towerfall.
Towerfall.
Okay,
thank you.
Ascension. Yeah.
And I'm glad we caught that. And then last but not least of the story headlines that caught our attention today, the ones we actually thought we're worth kind of bugging you guys about. Samsung has announced they are launching their first Tizen-powered phone, complete with a 4.inch HD Super AMOLED display and a 2.3 gigahertz quad-core ARM processor. The Samsung Z will be available in Q3 in Russia and is planned to expand to other markets in the future, with no firm details on that. A Tizen phone ships. Also, you might have caught the news that they recently sent out Tizen to the old Samsung Gear smartwatches as well. From Android, they've upgraded them, quote-unquote, to Tizen. So that, my friends, are the headlines that we thought mattered this morning. Of course, the rest of the news is going to break about 10 o'clock today. Everybody, seriously, in hindsight, maybe today wasn't the greatest day, because what everybody does is on Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays around WWDC, they kind of hold back their announcements because Apple just steals the whole floor. And it's sort of like they just come in and it's like when that big guy takes a big cannonball jump in the pool and splashes everybody. That's what Apple's doing right now.
Well, for me, the fact that Facebook are going to trial Btrfs means more than Apple releasing a new phone or a laptop.
You think so? Or you think that's a bigger deal?
For me, yeah. I mean, I use Btrfs at home on my Facebook-size cloud server on top of the fridge. But it's great that it's getting more use because Btrfs has got this reputation that it will eat your data.
Yes.
And when there's a catastrophe, you've lost everything, and it's a disaster, and you shouldn't use it. And in fact, that's borne out by the fact that in the article they're talking about the fact that they're only using it on their web tier, which is easier for them to recover. So they know that there's the possibility it could all go pear-shaped.
We actually talked about this a few weeks ago on one of our shows, and I remember thinking to myself, was this a sign that the attitude about Btrfs is changing? So then we put out that poll to our audience, and it was a resounding, I would never use Btrfs in production response.
Wow.
So now this is the perfect guy to be doing this work. He works at Facebook. So he also is the main maintainer of Btrfs in the Linux kernel. So it's like if something goes wrong, they've got the guy to fix this, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he created Btrfs when he was at Oracle. He moved to Fusion.io, and then at the beginning of the year moved to Facebook, as you said. So he is the Btrfs guy.
Yes. Now, why don't we? We'll join our friends who are joining us today on the Mumble Room. So I'm going to move us up into the on-air channel, so that way we can chat with some other Mumble folks. And guys, any of the headlines that jumped out at you, specifically any thoughts on the Btrfs deployment at Facebook? Is this a change for Btrfs? Are we going to see attitudes improve now? Nobody? Okay. All right. That's fine. Go ahead.
When you got one of the largest social networks using it, I mean, that's got to shed some good light on its subject.
Yeah, I think so. And I wonder, too, if they will share any disasters that happen. All right, well, I wanted to follow up on
TrueCrypt.
Go ahead.
Wasn't you guys said once that you can't use a file system that is still in 1.0. And so even though Facebook has adopted it, it still isn't 1.0, and it still does require a lot of development, doesn't it? Or am I mistaken?
No, and I think
it's not finished. There's not a stable release been done of Btrfs, but someone at some point has to bite the bullet and use it. And until people use it, it's the same. I feel the same way about how Ubuntu landed Pulse Audio possibly a little bit too early. Someone's going to test this stuff out, and if nobody does, you're never going to find all the weird esoteric bugs. And I'd much rather someone like Facebook with its gigantic data centers full of machines figured this stuff out while employing the guy who maintains it than me on my home server with my photo collection.
Let them work it out. Let them make the patches, and call me in a year, and we'll see how we're doing. In the meantime, ZFS continues to eat everybody's file system lunch. I want to shift gears while we got the whole room together, and I want to talk just really quickly, because this is the personal story that's of most interest to me for the show today, and that's the continuing development of the TrueCrypt story. I feel like every day we learn something new. Now it seems pretty conclusive that the developers were just kind of burning out. Do you guys accept that? Does this still seem fishy to you, Popey?
I'm kind of not sure. When I first saw the news, I thought for sure this is a canary, and they've been given legal reasons why they should open things up or choose the lava bit way and shut down. And but I'm not entirely sure. When I read other reports, it seems that actually they're just burned out. But
Yeah, okay.
It's hard to tell because they're so secure.
Well, so then what the
so
hell? Because
private.
I mean, so here's what we've had in the last couple of months for open source credibility. We've had Heartbleed, which a lot of people jumped on, right or wrong, as an opportunity to say, look, the open source model doesn't solve all security issues. Now we've got the TrueCrypt guys. You get everybody dependent on it. You get Edward Snowden talking about it. You get Glenn Greenwald talking about it. They bail like a bunch of jerks, even though an entire industry is dependent on them, again giving open source a bad name. And I guarantee you this audit that's going on right now has got to be somehow related to all of this. Maybe it gave them the pressure to like, oh, crap, people, there's going to be problems that come out. I mean, they even said in their closing argument, there's bugs, don't use it. They know there's going to be bugs discovered. So instead, they took a dump in the toilet, and then they just got up and left without flushing. And now we're all sitting here going, well, should we pull that dump out and try to make it smell good, or do we just start all over from scratch? And again, the open source community is left looking like a bunch of amateurs.
Well, yeah, maybe. But I would think those guys, they've been working on it for 10 years, and then someone comes along and starts scrutinizing their work really closely in the culture that we're in now, where security is key. I don't blame them. I don't blame them for giving up. It's their code. They wrote it. They can do whatever they like with it, and I don't blame them at all for stepping back.
Also, Chris, I think you're being a little unfair here, because you're kind of making it sound like no proprietary project has ever dropped support for their product.
A lot of cases in a commercial or proprietary company will gracefully and respectfully wind down the product, with an announcement and alert. Not always, but when it's something critical, this is
usually a month's notice at most. You see these.
I can't think of a commercial product like this.
Such and such a service is shutting down. Well, yeah, but I'm thinking more of cloud services that will affect a user.
Sure, yeah.
A piece of software that's out there is still downloadable after the project has ceased.
Encryption is so much. It's at a whole other category than like Google Buzz, right? I mean, it is literally like it could in some cases be life and death. Yeah, it could be life and death in some situations, though. I mean, the entire Edward Snowden leaks are theoretically protected in a TrueCrypt volume somewhere. I mean, we're talking. This is literally one of the most. Maybe it's not exaggerating to say one of the most important pieces of software that we have. And for these guys just to bail like this, and then that's the other part that bugs me is after 10 years they just get up and walk. Like if I invest something for 10 years. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'd just reach a point I'd be so burned out I'd want to walk away. But gosh, you'd wish if you're going to put yourself in a position to create something that people become so dependent on, you would have the foresight and also the personal responsibility to gracefully wind that down.
How do you gracefully drop support for an encryption, though?
Well, you don't do it through these weird, bogus-looking hacked websites with bad grammar and thrown together screenshots. And it seems a little... And maybe you work with other projects to see where they're at and give people an open source option and not something that's controlled by Microsoft and controlled by Apple?
I think you're overlooking this a little bit because, I mean, the beauty of it being open source is all the code is still up on GitHub. And how many forks have been forked already?
Right.
Also, it's open source. You weren't paying for it to begin with. So...
Yeah, I feel like we can't use that as an excuse. If you want people to treat open source as mission grade capable, you can't say, well, when it doesn't work, you didn't pay for it. I mean, I know that Samba server ate all the files on your file directory there, but you didn't pay for it.
Well,
it's not a good enough answer.
And actually give them money so they can keep it going.
Well, I mean, there is that. I think what's interesting is the new TrueCrypt project, or the guys at TrueCrypt.ch, not a project yet, just sort of an organizing landing spot. They said TrueCrypt development can't be done in the dark anymore. We're going to have to be public figures. Do you guys agree with that? What do you think, Popey?
I think they're going to get into the same situation that LavaBit did, or they could potentially get themselves in the same situation that LavaBit did, where they start getting government agencies after them for whatever reason, wanting them to provide how to unlock Edward Snowden's big blob of files.
Isn't that another point to this? Is like we have this massively overreaching spying apparatus that the Five Eyes all share, specifically the NSA and GCHQ, which are the most offensive of the group. Like, we need every protection we can get, some of us do. Not, I don't personally, but I know there's people out there who do. And again, losing TrueCrypt in this fight when we already... we haven't just lost. Like, we were, like, the war was fought and we were decimated. Our privacy was decimated, and we didn't even realize it until 3 or 4 years after the war ended. And, like, one of the last few shotguns we all have in our house just got taken away from us.
But that's the point. There are other software solutions
But
available.
it shot the best. And you and I could share our bullets. How do you like that? You like that analogy? I'm stretching it a little bit.
Wow.
I know, I'm sorry. I mean, I'm a little bit annoyed. I'm a little bit annoyed because there's certain things in this world I think I can rely on. There's certain things we tell ourselves over and over again. And I think you guys are probably right. I think one of these forks is going to play out and it's going to be okay. And maybe something else will come along. I don't think TrueCrypt will remain the top dog anymore, though, or whatever its variant is. I think it's going to be hundreds of replacements, not one replacement. Maybe that's okay. Maybe that gives...
That's actually a good thing, though, when it's encryption. It's not just one thing you have to rely on.
Right,
so.
right. That's what I was... Yeah, I mean, that actually could be, in some ways, more secure to have...
I guess I'm more blasé about it because I've never used it, and I've never had to use it. I have encryption built into my Linux distro, and I don't need to share files, encrypted blobs, and I don't need to have an encrypted hard drive as I travel through, TSA patting down or anything like that.
Yeah.
I'm not that kind of person.
Not
but I
yet.
can imagine well, maybe in the future, but I can understand how that would be frustrating for someone who's tied up a lot of their work in that software.
Yeah.
But there are alternatives.
Yeah, there
and
are.
The software they've got still works. It's not like they put out a patch that went out and did a remote kill on every install of TrueCrypt. 7.1a or whatever the previous release from 2 years ago is still there. You can still download it and still use it.
Yep. And we will have links in the show notes if you guys want to go find that and grab the latest version of the safe copy. And we also covered an alternative in Linux Action Show for you Linux users. Now, Mr. Popey, since this is the first episode, I want to spend a couple of minutes talking to you before I kind of just... I figure in the first episode or two, I have to spend a little bit of time talking about the show itself and kind of letting people know what to expect. But first, before we get to that, I wanted to pick your brain because you tweeted something the other day that I was like, okay, I'm a little jealous of that. I kind of want to do that right now. So this was on May 30th. You tweet, "This evening, I'll mostly be going to the pub with my Ubuntu phone and a notebook. My pub friends always find bugs I don't even think of." So you really, okay now, are you really grabbing like, well, honey, I'm going to see you later, kids? Because for those of you who don't know, Popey's also got kids. You grab a phone, you grab your laptop, and you head to the pub, and you call this work, and you actually get away with it?
Well, it's not work. I'm I wouldn't go that far. So yeah, I'll take my phone to the pub. The guy I was going to the pub with actually is a guy I met randomly on the train, who just happened to be an Ubuntu user. I've mentioned him in the past on Unplugged actually, and one of his friends was listening and said, "I know who that is," and pinged me on Google Plus. But so this guy is outside of Canonical, outside my close social circle of people, so doesn't get to see Ubuntu very closely, or Ubuntu on phones very closely. So yeah, I can sit in the pub, have a notebook, put it in his hand, and just watch as he pokes at it and swipes. And you could do this with anyone. I could hand it to my mother-in-law or my kids or something. And I think it's very valuable to do that because I have a prescribed set of things that I do with the phone every day to make sure that it all works.
Yeah.
But then sometimes there's the random things like pressing 8 times on the power button. Oh, it crashes. You wouldn't have expected.
You would never do that. So yeah.
And why would someone do that? Well, it turns out that some people do sit there and play with the button on their phone and just press it repeatedly, and when it crashes, that's not a good thing.
Now, also, we had our secret agents monitoring your Twitter feed, and I caught another tweet: reviews and ratings now work on Ubuntu phone. How closely are you working with the app submissions for Ubuntu? Is that your bag? What are you doing with the Ubuntu Touch project?
So with Ubuntu Touch, I work with the community team who help us develop some of the core applications like the clock, the calculator, calendar, music app. Those are community developed applications. They're not all developed in-house. Some are, some aren't. And as well as that, we've got third-party developers who are creating applications, and they submit them to our store. And at the moment, there's a semi-manual review process in that I download their package, their click packages and I run a script which sanity checks them. And if they pass the test, then I approve them. If they don't pass, then I send them a message that says, it's rejected for these reasons, please fix it and resubmit. I'm not the only person doing that. There's about 5 or 6 of us doing that. But the interesting thing is I'm being replaced by a very small shell script very soon.
Is that because you're going to be busy doing something else?
No, it's because the whole idea is to automate it so that a developer could download the SDK, create an application, and then press a single button and it upload to the store, and within minutes it'd be live and active and available to publish, and no user interaction, unlike the Windows Phone store where it takes up to 5 days to get an app approved into the store, and the iOS store where there's some approval and some onerous conditions on what can go in the store, and the Google Play Store, which also has its conditions. We're trying to make it as open as we possibly can so that we don't have these onerous restrictions. It's not all there yet, but we had a demo of it at a company sprint in Malta a couple of weeks ago, a demo of the fully automated version, and it works really nicely.
Very nice. So my final Ubuntu Touch question for you, and then you can touch on anything you want. But is there anything today, as we watch the Apple developer keynote, if they say iOS 8 has XYZ feature, is there going to be any feature you go, oh crap, we were really hoping they wouldn't do that? That was something we were going to do.
Yeah, openness. If they say we're going to change the phone and make it completely open and you can access the source code, then that takes away one of our crowning glories. I mean, you mentioned earlier about Tizen and how Samsung are now releasing Tizen phones, and Tizen is ostensibly open source, but a lot of the stuff that sits on top of that is not open source. Some of the apps that Samsung create are, I think the license is called Flora, and it's not compatible with the GPL. So it's their apps aren't necessarily open source. And what we're trying to say is everything that's on our phone is everything that we create anyway is open source free software.
Well, I'll tell
you. If they did that, I would be worried. Nothing else really worries me.
I mean, I'm sure this isn't like a worry category, but maybe an annoyance category. I wouldn't be surprised to see a few gesture swipes. Maybe copied.
We're not the first to use gestures, and neither would they be. The N9 had gestures, the Yola phone has gestures, we've got gestures.
Sure, but it seems like Apple's really good at watching companies of a certain size where they could maybe pull a few features from that people wouldn't notice, and I think Canonical is getting to that in that range now where they probably have an eye on what Ubuntu Touch is doing and go, that's not a bad idea. I wouldn't be too surprised.
It would be lovely to think that's the case.
Yeah. I know. Well, hey, just trying to put a local Linux spin on it for you. Well, so I wanted to cover a couple of things about the show itself, and you feel free if you got any questions to ask me. But so Tech Talk Today, daily show Monday through Thursday, and it's just beginning. I have a lot of ideas about what I want to do with the show. A lot of fun things we could do, different bits, different guests I want to get on. And it's all going to kind of depend on what the interest level is from the audience, because a daily show, it's not just like a commitment, and this is not, it is literally a lifestyle commitment. It means that I commit to living my life a certain way. So I want to make sure before we go too far, the audience digs it. And if you guys do, I got a lot of fun stuff planned. So here's how you can support the show and also support the network. You go to patreon.com/today. Patreon.com/today. We've already got 39 patrons. We've reached our first milestone before the first episode hit the air, which is awesome. You guys rock. And we have our milestone goals laid out. And I'll also be adjusting these over time as we kind of get an idea of what the show is going to be and what would be more appropriate to go in here. So we've just hit our first, where we're going to continue to have the video feed so we can pay for that. Then we've got some other goals. There is one I'm really excited about, and that's the barbecue challenge. You can go read over at patreon.com/today what the barbecue challenge is, but I have so many fun ideas for how we can incorporate this into a daily series. So please support the show. And also, we have different pledge levels where at certain levels you also will become a supporter of the Jupiter Broadcasting Network. We're trying to establish a stable crowd-funded base so that way we know if we want to launch off on a project or if we need to make infrastructure improvements here at the studio, which there are lots of. We've gotten into the studio. Now there's a lot of things we need to replace or change or add to or fix. And all of that will help. All of the funding at the patreon.com/today page, all of that goes into invest into Jupiter Broadcasting. As a thank you, I'm producing Tech Talk Today. And we'll see. It's a grand experiment.
I think it's a great idea.
Thank you.
I'm a keen user of Indiegogo and Kickstarter and other crowdfunding, so I like the ability to pick and choose what I support to the level that I want to support. And I'd not heard of Patreon before, so
it's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic.
Patreon's great because we are going to save so much money on payment processing. Like on Amazon, for example, we pay every time we charge somebody's card, and then if the card fails, which happens to a good percentage of them in a month, we pay every time they retry, and sometimes they retry and retry and retry, and it just gets to be crazy expensive for us. Patreon solves that, plus the public funding is listed there. You get to see our milestone goals, so you know how much we're making and what we're going to do when we get to each goal. So we'd really appreciate your support. We have some great fun ideas. Patreon.com/today. Fund this show, fund the network, and we'll keep doing this every day. Show up and you'll see it expand. Like right now, I just saw a suggestion which I really like in the chat room is maybe when big vulnerabilities come out that day, we could do it. I'll try to put it in the headlines. So I'm thinking for the first few shows, I'm going to try some headlines at the beginning of the show. That way you guys can download every day, and you're going to get some news right away. And then we'll do a little conversation stuff, and we'll take care of some business. And I'll also probably mention some other things going on in the network. Like we just had a great faux show last night after the Linux Action Show, where my wife has, she wears hair buns, and somehow, Popey, I don't actually know how she pulled this off. I would have thought it's impossible. She convinced a predominantly male audience to make their hair into hair buns and then take pictures of it, selfies if you will, and then send them in to her, and then we showed them on the internet. I don't know how she pulled that off, but it was a really funny episode. So you can see some of your fellow Jupiter Broadcasting audience members in hair buns. It's worth it. If it sounds funny to you, trust me, it is funny. So yeah, we'll have we have a couple of last bits of business for you to know about. RSS feeds are up on the show page. We'll eventually have them in the main drop-down on the website, but right now they're in the show notes. There is a subreddit if you would like to help find those vulnerability announcements or find news or discussion pieces. Doesn't have to be headlines. We have a subreddit. You can find it at techtalktoday.reddit.com, techtalktoday.reddit.com. And you can also email the show today@jupiterbroadcasting.com. Today@jupiterbroadcasting.com. I say it twice, that way you get it. So yeah, I'm really excited. I'd love to see you guys join me in that subreddit, techtalktoday.reddit.com, and help us figure out some of the content and vote it up and down, leave comments, give me your feedback on the show, see what you would like us to add. And since this is, at least for now, depending on where our Patreon funding goes, ad-free, and if the Patreon funding does well, we'll keep it ad-free. But since it is ad-free for now, I thought it would be fun to say thanks to the wife, Angela, for helping us get this show off the ground, and also thanks to Rikai. But I got something special. I got a special old-time ad that's just for the wife. It's not for you guys, but you guys can watch it if you want. So we'll sign off with this. But Popey, man, thanks for coming on the first show.
Hey, thanks for inviting me. I'm proud to be able to come on the first show.
Well, I'll have you back soon if you'll join me again, okay?
Yeah, anytime. I'm not busy.
Oh, yeah, I know, right? I mean, you just have a job, a wife, kids.
Yeah, we've just got a phone to ship.
A phone, a pub, all those things. I know. Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. All right, so I'm going to take us out with an old Mountain Dew commercial. This is for you, Angers. Enjoy. I think. There we go.
Yahoo! Mountain Dew! Oh, beautiful Sal was a stone-hearted gal, refusing to bill or to coo. But Clem was right smart, he appealed to her heart with that gal getting good old Mountain Dew.
Yahoo! Mountain Dew!
Mountain Dew will tickle your innards, 'cause there's a bang in every bottle. At the county turkey shoot, 'cause Luke warn't worth a hoot, he was hopeless till he finally took the cue.
Yahoo! Mountain Dew!
Now he shoots off the cup, gets more than enough after nipping at that good old Mountain Dew. Sure as shooting, there's a bang in every bottle of our delicious soft drink, Mountain Dew. It'll tickle your innards.